Hi everyone. This is the first sort of lesson of Afro Celt Sound Systems piece release. Hopefully you will have done the first and second tasks that I've set, which were to do with the keywords associated with this set work, and also some background research to give you some idea of the context of this piece. So if we have a look at that now. This is the second piece in the area of study that's called Fusions, area of study 4. So a fusion is a blending of two or more musical styles, usually from different cultures. So like you would get sort of a fusion cuisine, which would be, English mixed with Spanish or something. Two different cultures of music joined together, blended together. So Afro Celt Sound System, if you have read page 2 of your work booklets with the background information about this group, from their name, hopefully you can garner the fact that we've got a fusion of 3 real different sort of styles that this group really focus on. So the Afro being African music, the Celt meaning sort of Celtic / Irish folk music, sound system being sort of electronic dance style music using a lot of technology. The second task I asked you to do was to look at technology used, and I gave you an extract from the Edexcel textbook about technology used in this piece. So from that, hopefully you've improved your understanding of multi-track recording. We touched on this when we looked at Queen. But it's basically where a recording machine will record different tracks and record them onto different things. So it means that layering and sort of textural effects in this style of music can be achieved. Similar to what you would do on GarageBand, where you're layering up different tracks. Mixing, where these recorded parts are then put together and balanced so that you are hearing a particular track at a particular moment. So in this piece, if there's a solo happening, you can also add effects and stuff to each individual track. You can also pan, which means that you can change which speaker, the left or the right, you want that particular sound to come out of. We've also got use of synthesizers. These can be electronic machines, they can be keyboard based, and they can be computer based as well, where artificially you can create all sorts of different sounds and timbres, so particular quality of an instrument. You can make them similar to acoustic instruments. You can also take samples from real acoustic instruments. You can then alter the sound so that they sound really authentic, or you can make them sound completely unrecognisable. And as we will see in this piece, the use of loops is incredibly prevalent, and this is often where something is pre-recorded and then a sample is taken and then put into the mix, into the loops, where they're repeated and edited. I then asked you to look at African music, traditional African music. Hopefully some of the things that you came up with were that it's incredibly percussion based. That's both tuned and untuned percussion, with some instruments that we don't have in sort of the Western classical tradition that you would be aware of. There are huge variances in African music. Obviously it's a massive continent, and the style of music can change between country to country, and also even village to village. Music is very much linked to the community, so for celebrations, and also for storytelling, and it's also linked to religion with ceremonies, weddings, baptisms, etc. It's all very much interlinked with music and the community and religion. African music tends to be passed down through the oral tradition, so it's hardly ever written down. And actually, because it's so different from our Western ear, it's actually really hard to write down and notate, because it's not quite as regular as our music, because our music tends to be written down first and then performed, and it's much more metric and much more literal. Um, African music is highly rhythmic, use of polyrhythms, rhythms laid over each other, different ones, and actually has gone on to influence Latin American music through the slave trade. So African slaves that were taken from Africa over to Latin America and the Caribbean, their style of music, their African style, was then combined with, say, flamenco from the Spanish settlers in those areas to create this Latin American music. I also asked you to look at traditional Celtic music. So Celtic sort of refers to the folk or traditional music of Celtic people, the Celtic people of Western Europe. At one point, Celtic people were all over the place. We tend to associate Celtic music mainly with Ireland and Scotland nowadays. For our purposes, it's really sort of Ireland that we're looking at. The music has lots of songs with folk tales, so telling stories from years gone by. There's also lots of traditional dance music in there as well. So, for instance, an Irish reel, a hornpipe, a jig. Celtic music very much associated with Irish dance. So, if anyone's ever seen Riverdance or Lord of the Dance, those sorts of traditional Irish tunes would go very much with the dancing. In terms of instrumentation, we've got the Irish fiddle, or the Celtic fiddle, which comes all the way back to the 8th century. So before we even had proper violins that we have now in sort of classical music, the Irish fiddle was well in manufacturing back then. We've also got sort of bagpipes, accordions, guitars, percussion, and Celtic music has gone on to influence the country music of the United States. So both of these styles of music have gone on to influence other things. Okay, moving on. Okay, so the first instrument I asked you to have a look at for your background research was the baron. So this is a traditional Irish drum. It's got a single skin, so a single-headed drum. It's got a cross handle behind it so that the player doesn't have to touch the skin of the drum. It's played with a two-headed beater, which the player will sort of shake almost in their hand. You can hit the frame as well as the skin. So hopefully I've got a little video to show you. Here we are.
And this is a baron.
A bit out of time there, but you get the idea. Second instrument was the kora. So this is a string instrument used in West Africa. It's got up to 21 individual strings, so it's a bit like a sort of African harp almost. They're plucked with finger and thumb on both hands. The body is made from a large gourd, which is a bit like a sort of pumpkin or a squash. And skilled players are able to produce sort of a repeating ostinato accompaniment as well as solo runs. So I should have a video for that as well. that was the kora. The next instrument was the Ilian pipes. I think that's how you say it. I think a previous pupil who was Irish, I think we managed to work out that it was Ilian pipes. So this is a bagpipe. It's the national bagpipe of Ireland, and it's quite different to the Scottish one. It's smaller to start with, and rather than using a mouthpiece to inflate the bellows, which is the bag of air that goes through the instrument, the player will use his elbow, usually on the left-hand side, to pump the air through. So, you know, if you weren't busy enough playing the Ilian pipes, you could also do some singing maybe as well. Like other bagpipes, it produces a natural drone, which is 1 or 2 pitches played together at the same time. So that's 2 of the pipes taken care of. The third pipe is called the chanter, and it's played, that's where you get the melody coming through on the pipes. And you would play it similar in a way to a recorder, so there are holes that you would cover with your fingers. So here is a video of these pipes. So you could see there the fingers were being used to create some sort of vibrato on the sound as well. Okay, it's not quite as harsh as the Scottish bagpipes. Next is the hurdy-gurdy. Now the hurdy-gurdy is actually a medieval instrument. It's that old. They're obviously modern versions of the same instrument. It's a string instrument. It's played with a hand crank, and you'll see this guy turning his hand round and round and round, and that is turning a wheel, which, if my mouse is working, and you can see, is here. Okay, and this wheel keeps going round and round and round and round, and it's constantly playing these strings, a little bit like a violin bow, but a never-ending one. So it will keep going, and the faster you turn it, the sound will change. So again, we get a drone sound, and melodies are played inside this box here. With his left hand, there is a sort of wooden keyboard, not like a piano keyboard, but a set of buttons and levers that will press small wedges onto the melody string so that a melody can be played along with the drone. So here is the hurdy-gurdy. So hopefully you could see there the hand crank going, and the slower he turned it, when he turned it slower, the dynamic definitely went down there. And the last instrument I asked you to have a look at was the talking drum. Okay, so we've got an hourglass shaped drum, again from West Africa. It's got 2 heads, but only one is used at any given time. Because of the hourglass shape, each skin is held on with strings that just attach to the other skin at the bottom. What happens is, because of the hourglass shape, it means that there is space for you to squeeze these strings, especially in the middle. And the tighter the string, the higher pitched the sound the drum will make. So the reason it's called a talking drum is that it gives the sense that it's almost talking to you because it can change the pitch of the drum while it's being played. So here is the last video, hopefully. Here we are. Okay, that was the talking drum. Now, we're going to have a listen to our piece. Okay, this piece is not notated in a way that we would normally expect. That's because it was never ever written down. So if you look at the box that I've got up here, this is from the front page of your score. So I suggest you get your score out now if you haven't already. The structure of the song is sort of standard pop music form, so introductions, verses, choruses, etc. At the same time as these sections happening, while the sort of solo might be playing, there will be different combinations of loops dropping in and out, dropping in and out. And there are lots of them. And no one would be expected to identify any given loop at any given time. So the first section, the first 2 pages, if I just move on, the first 2 pages of your score will look like this image on the left. All right, so this has the vocals, and it also has instrumental solos on the hurdy-gurdy and the uilleann pipes. So those are the main things to look out for, and the score will tell you when they're happening and at what point. On the right-hand side over here, you can see the first 3 of numerous loops that are used throughout the piece, and you can see that they've got repeat marks at the end because they're used as and when. They're only 4 bars long, and if you look over here, this solo is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bars long. Okay, and there's 3 verses of it. First time bar, second time bar, third time bar. So what I'd like you to do is to get your score and to follow it through as we listen to it, paying attention to the 2 pages with these figures. So rather than saying loop, it will say fig. All right, and I want you to try and identify when you hear those. I'd also like you to try and identify when you might hear any of the instruments that we've just gone through. Okay. At the end of hearing this, I'll just tell you about what the other things I'd like you to do for this week's worth of work. But here we go with the piece. Reach out and touch me. Make effort to speak to me. Call out and you hear me. Be happy for me. Ik trust in me. Ik feel that she's true. Don't argue amongst yourself because of the loss of me. I haven't gone anywhere, but out of my body. Reach out and touch me. Make effort to speak to me. Call out and you hear me. Be happy for me. Reach out and touch me. Make effort to speak to me. Call out and hear me. Be happy for me. Okay, so that's our longest piece out of all the set works, and hopefully, having listened to it and with the explanation I gave at the beginning, you're able to sort of follow some of the the, the ideas that kept coming back. To finish off this week's set of work, what I'd like you to do is listen to the 3 wider listening pieces in your workbooks. I will put the links onto Teams so you can listen how many times you wish to and sort of go back and listen to at your leisure. Then in your workbooks, I'd like you to complete the table for each piece. Remember, there is a page before the 3 wide listenings that has some hints on it to help you, which is even more important when we're doing this remotely. And then if you could take a picture of one or all of those tables completed as your evidence to hand in. Once again, you can either hand in on Teams, which if you've got the app, you can easily upload a picture straight away. If you don't, you can always email it to me as well. That's more than fine. Thank you for everyone who's kept up with these tasks. It's greatly appreciated for us teachers at home not quite knowing what's going on, to know that you're getting on with it. And like I said in an email a couple of weeks ago, whether you knew this or not, all of your option subjects will be going down to 2 lessons a week when you're in year 11. So we get 3 in year 10, but only 2 in year 11. So you'll have one with Miss Drage and one with me. So that means we've got even less time to get all of the exam content finished. But I am confident, with showing me your excellent work ethic over the last few weeks, that we'll be absolutely fine. So I'll sign out for now. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you're all okay. Sending lots of positive thoughts your way. Okay.